One of these films was among the first movies to cash in on the emerging slasher craze and helped cement Jamie Lee Curtis's Scream Queen reputation. The other film is a Tubi original release, capitalizing on the streaming service's large horror fanbase to bring new life to this story of locomotive madness. But which is the best? A group of college students seek to end their 4-year journey on an old steam train, determined to have one final amazing party. Well, it will certainly be the last party for most of these poor sods. How do we know this? Not only does the party take place on a holiday, New Year's Eve in this case, but it is the anniversary of a prank that went awry. In slasher movie terms, yep, all these suckers are dead before they ever step foot off the platform. A useful prologue shows us the fateful night where things all went wrong. The horrible leader of the fraternity, Doc, goads everyone into taking part in a mean joke. Little virgin Kenny is tricked into thinking he will be losing his virginity to Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Elena. Kenny is nervous, but excited. He strips down to his ugly urine yellow pants in record speed. Tell the truth, if Jamie Lee Curtis was hiding on the other side of a sheet, telling you to undress, telling you to kiss her, I think your clothes would mysteriously vanish too. Unbeknownst to the boy, he is getting into bed with a corpse. Maybe Kenny has bigger issues than his poor choice in underwear. Some mental instability reveals itself, and he tangles himself so badly that he breaks the very fabric of time and space. This segment is the first footage in the movie, but it was the last to be filmed. The filmmakers realised that something was needed to really solidify Kenny's story. I agree, though the finished product feels a bit rushed.
Same to you, Doc.
The fact that it was a late addition maybe explains why Jamie Lee Curtis, who was already famous from Halloween, is revealed so indistinctly from the rest of the cast. But from here, we jump straight to the current New Year's celebrations, aboard the fancy old choo-choo. This is bull hockey. No college parties I ever attended were aboard any kind of moving transport. Thanks, guys, way to make me feel like a right Kenny. Tensions are a smidge high, but it has nothing to do with the murderer who has snuck onto the train. Canadian Tom Cruise is continuing his efforts to be the most unlikable person on the planet, constantly playing his friends off each other, and setting up a variety of cruel jokes. There's more cheating in this one fraternity than there is within all of Russia's Olympic teams. Well, you know what they say. Nothing sparks some risky canoodling like a coal-powered train and a lizard costume. Thankfully, there is other entertainment scheduled beyond just adultery and hissy fits. There is a band, and also a magician, played by David Copperfield in his only acting role. That's right, come for the slashing, stay for the magic. The only thing funkier than his tricks is his backing music. God damn, that's funky. The magician's act goes down a storm, tempting Elena to reveal her own tricks.
Now what about my peanuts?
Also aboard the train is the lovable conductor, played by esteemed actor Ben Johnson. This guy is real sweet. This type of character would typically be some old curmudgeon, perpetually cranky about these darn kids, drinking, boning and disrespecting the sanctity of train travel. Nothing could be further from the truth. He is jolly and jovial. He just wants them to have the best possible time, and he takes a great expanded role when the plot turns nasty. Yes, there are spooks to be had. Nobody knows who ordered the magician. Lockers are full of hissing cloves. And the Enterprise gets hit by a photon torpedo. Most importantly, yeah, there's a killer sneaking around, bumping off everyone who was involved in that previous prank, which left Kenny in the hospital. This killer is what elevates Terror Train for me. This guy knows what he's doing. He is an expert in discarding the bodies, placing them on the track, using a lockpick to keep them hidden away in a toilet, stowing them in all manner of crooks and compartments. And, as his spree goes along, he switches disguises with the latest victim. A great gimmick, and allows for some fine trickery, as can be plainly seen on Ben Johnson's rumbled face. Of the many disguises, my favourite is Groucho Marx, creeping down the carriage, turning people into duck soup. A very common complaint I have with horror films is that they often fall flat in the third act. Terror Train is the opposite. I find the first 2/3 of the film to be watchable but standard stuff, lessened by cutting away as the action begins, and suffering some poor audio performances. No! But as the film draws towards its climax, my engagement rises immensely. The mystery of who the killer is begins to seem less clear-cut than it originally did, and builds into a fantastic chase sequence between Elena and the killer. Jamie learned nothing from her spat with Michael Myers, and leaves the job half finished, before a cat-and-mouse game leads to several exciting moments. Both hero and villain are awarded wins and losses. A highlight for me is Elena thinking she is safe by locking herself in the cage, ha ha ha, but realises she has just made herself an easy trapped target, ho ho ho. Still, nothing a receipt holder can't fix. Elena emerges victorious from the initial chase, but the fight is won too easily. The killer confirms this by playing Spider-Man on the outside of the train, and initiates a second climactic battle. This time, the war is fought face to face. The killer's reveal is executed wonderfully. Pranks, tricks, and misdirection have been a constant theme throughout the film, but Terror Train's greatest trick plays out right here. My brain did notice that the magician's assistant went AWOL for a long time, but I never put 2 and 2 together. It's a nifty twist that adds some much needed surprise, seeing as it is otherwise abundantly clear that Kenny was going to be the killer. Woohoo, the callback to that taunting kiss, and the reversal of the situation. Bloody perfect. Careful what you wish for, Kenny. It triggers the boy once again. But there's no bedsheets here to save you this time. Whenever you get yourself in a spot of bother, maybe someone's harassing you on the street, maybe a drunkard is up in your grill, you best pray that a shovel-wielding Ben Johnson is in your corner to back you up. Wham!
Oh my god! They killed Kenny!
Ben Johnson! And here it comes, the best moment of the film. The body descends towards a big pool of water in the centre frame, and splash! It couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke. The film just ends then and there. They knew they couldn't top that. Terror Train is not remembered as one of the all-time great slashers, and I think that's fair, to be honest. It was directed by Roger Spottiswoode, who does well with his first time behind the camera, after an editing career that saw him work on classics like Straw Dogs and The Gambler. He would later go on to direct everyone's second favourite Brosnan Bond, Tomorrow Never Dies. But unfortunately, no remote-controlled BMWs show up in Terror Train, much to my dismay. Give Ben Johnson a remote-controlled shovel, you cowards! Copperfield's illusions are fun to watch, and his performance is pretty good too. He himself would disagree, hence why he never acted again. Derek McKinnon's raspy turn as Kenny is also impressive for another non-actor. The others, Jamie Lee, Vanity, all do a serviceable job in the service carriage. A superb villain and a tremendous final act, but the rest of the film has too little action and too much Doc. Piss off, Doc! Hardcore slasher fans might disagree, but there is potentially room for improvement here. So slap on your piss yellow pants, and let's find out. Does the remake deliver, or does it miss the station? Jamie Lee Curtis left a permanent stamp on the horror genre with 3 films in quick succession: Halloween, Prom Night, and Terror Train. Halloween got its remake in 2007, as did Prom Night in 2008. Terror Train almost got a remake in 2008 as well, but the project was reworked into an original concept, simply titled Train. So here we are, 15 years after this initial rush to remake every spooky Jamie Lee flick, with an official Terror Train remake. This new film is a Tubi original, not to be confused with a Mubi original or a Doobie original. That's a streaming service where the only option is bones. Honestly, I was expecting this remake to be closer to the 2008 film Train, meaning they'd just take the name and make a new slasher that happens to be set on a locomotive. I am shook. This is actually a surprisingly faithful do-over. For the most part, the plot plays out beat for beat as it did before. Details such as the opening credits, character names, and the order and manner of the kills remain the same. You might be thinking that this is a repeat of Cabin Fever 2016's Cardinal Sins, a remake that is so close to the original that you're left wondering why they even bothered in the first place. Huh, I'm even more shook. It doesn't come across that way when you're watching it at all. But how? The main factor is the pacing. The remake manages to streamline what came before. The relationships feel more natural, more developed. Don't get me wrong, they're still as deep as a paddling pool, but it all seems to flow better. A new soundtrack helps keep the energy at a persistent level. There is less time spent watching full Copperfield routines, and less time hanging out with Ben Johnson and friends, which I enjoyed, but they distracted from the fraternity's problems. What really drives the pace of this Terror Train is a greater emphasis on the mystery angle. Kenny is still hospitalised after a prank gone wrong in the opening scene, but this script works harder to draw suspicions elsewhere. The Magician is one such character whose role has been beefed up like a prize cow. It is quite late into the original film when Copperfield becomes a real red herring. Here, the Magician has a shady side from moment numero uno. Cocky, dark, dangerous. I'm of two minds. On one side, I like that he plays a bigger part here and really elevates Final Girl Alana with their many interactions. On the other side, the dodgy magician, it's a bit on the nose, and is often ruined by cliché lines like,
"Well, if I told you, I'd have to kill you."
Wow, I've never heard that in any film or show before, ever. Yet, I think overall, this change is an improvement. Doc is still a hateful waste of oxygen, yet I found this incarnation to be more bearable to watch. He seems less repetitive, and also gets shut down a lot more often by his peers, which is something that never loses its punch. Piss off, Doc. Modern sentiments, such as bemoaning cancel culture and the hazing bans, are weaved into his vocab, but wisely, the script never dwells on it, preventing it from becoming preachy. His comeuppance also takes advantage of modern technology in a straightforward but natural way. Other changes include switching the party from New Year's Eve to Halloween. Ooh. It is a more obvious choice for a horror film, but it doesn't really affect the proceedings. If anything, it makes the costumes and the pranks more fitting. Speaking of generic changes, we have lost the Groucho Marx mask and the Cursed Larry David mask, in favour of a standard creepy clown getup. It does the job, but it lacks that sense of individuality. In order to discuss the rest, I'm going to hit the railroad switch and put us onto the spoiler track. Skip to this time code to hear my spoiler-free verdicts on both films. The third act takes us down the same route. The original's best scenes, the chase and cage match between Kenny and Elena, is revived here, but it fails to be as exciting. Something about the way the remake is shot, it doesn't feel right. The villain smashes the light bulbs, but it makes literally no difference to the room. Before, it helped swamp the carriage in darkness, and created some fantastic mood lighting. They only did it here because they did it in the original. Bit lazy, a bit of a misstep. Anyway, Alana meets Kenny, and we go through the kissy stuff again. Decent enough, but it ends on a bit of a limp note, as the magician seemingly takes out the main villain from a surprise gunshot. Bang! But hold up, there's a new, extra twist. Kenny was involved in the party the entire time, in a rabbit costume. So who was the killer? Well, I have to admit, for once, I saw the twist coming. Yes, it finally happened. Firstly, there was no magician's assistant, so they were clearly doing something different this time. My suspicions were then raised when Ben Johnson's character seemed unnecessarily split into two different characters. An old lady and a first-time young porter lady. I was like, hold on, I bet that's Kenny's mum. And yep, she was. You borrowed from the wrong 1980s slasher film, you fools! It works in the isolated context of the film, but after Friday the 13th, Scream 2, The New Slumber Party Massacre, it's not as fresh or exciting as it could be. Oh, she's bumped off too. No shovel surprise, but at least Alana herself gets to deliver the final blows. Right, before this video goes off the rails, let's get into the verdicts. Best final go. It feels like blasphemy to vote against Jamie Lee Curtis, but I'm afraid I must. Robin Alamar's version of Alana is more sympathetic and remorseful. She takes better jabs at Doc, Mo, and the Magician, and also holds her own pretty well against the villain. Best villain. The original takes this win. Kenny was creepy, efficient, and used more unique disguises. As I said before, the assistant twist was also pretty magical. Best kills. The kills are almost identical in both. The remake is superior in this regard, however, because the original was adequately suspenseful, but the actual kills themselves are basic and unrevealing. The remake is unimpaired by the MPAA, and is allowed the chance to savour the bloody carnage. Best kill. This is a no-brainer for me. Kiss, freak out, shovel, fool, ice, river. Wonderful. Best film. Which train would I happily ride again? I think the original has the stronger third act, but to my surprise, I choose the remake. It's less clunky, it has better kills, and it has better overall characterization. So, what are your opinions? Which film do you prefer? Let us know in the comments below. Until the next time then, stay spooky!